Erik McKinney here with Darrell Rideaux, and Darrell, we're wrapping up USC 35, Colorado 31. We are going to talk about a USC win. For a long time, it felt like we were not going to talk about a USC win tonight. This was a Friday night road game. USC goes into Boulder and pulls out a 35-31 win. Give me your overall thoughts on that game.
The very fact that you said USC goes into Boulder and had to pull out a victory, and by the thinnest of margins, you're talking. Had Clay Helton not have figured out a way to get this team motivated in the fourth quarter to pull out this victory, you know, there was a lot of talk about Dabo Swinney sending one of his players home with the managers on the bus while the rest of the team took the plane. I think Clay Helton would have been in one of those trailers trailed behind the bus, because that's the road that he might have had to take had they have not defeated the Colorado Buffaloes in Boulder. This is the team that has never beaten USC out of 13 tries. This is the team that, quite frankly, came in limping in this game, but somehow after a magnificent first drive by USC where they seemingly just shredded Colorado, found their stride. And if it wasn't for just a weird, bizarre type of play where it looked like Montez might have gotten rattled just enough to leave the game, but didn't seem to come back himself, the quarterback for the Buffaloes, we may be talking about a different narrative in this game. So while USC pulled off a victory the first time since 2017, the Rose Bowl, where they've come back from 10 points behind, Erik, you know, a lot of firsts and a lot of worsts as we break down this game.
Yeah, USC is down 10 going into that fourth quarter. They outscore Colorado 14-0. I'm curious about the first three quarters. What did you see? Again, you talked about USC's first drive. 3 plays, they go the length of the field and score a touchdown, and it looked like, okay, the early offensive struggles are over. The road woes are over. The Friday night game sort of trap is over, and USC is rolling to a big win. What did Colorado do defensively, or what did USC struggle with defensively? Because it felt like from that point on, again, the rest of the first 3 quarters, both those things were happening. USC couldn't really stomp their foot down offensively and run away. And defensively for USC, it felt like kind of Colorado sort of could do whatever they wanted against USC. What did you see? Take both sides, I guess, and
Sure.
Go ahead and take us through it.
All right, so let me start offensively for USC. Where I thought they started to struggle was when, after that first drive where Colorado was seemingly in their base defense, they started to make some key adjustments because, quite frankly, they noticed that USC was going to do what USC does. And the Graham Harrell offense run their same vanilla 5 plays and just rely on pure talent. Well, what did we notice from Colorado? Unlike many other teams that ran a 3-down lineman and dropped 8, Colorado decided that they were going to neutralize and force Keaton Slovis at times to try to beat them. Now, the one area where USC really fails to exploit and finds themselves playing 10 on 11, meaning 10 offensively against 11 defensively, is that they don't take advantage of running the quarterback just enough to keep the in rushers honest. As a result of that, we noticed a couple of things. We noticed the line not fearing the handoff and really collapsing on the running game. But also it was the delayed blitzes that seemed to really impact this offensive line. Now, when I look at this offensive line, Erik, I think about the fact that throughout the course of the year, for the most part, they've been very consistent in terms of the starters. You know, starting every game, or at the very least finishing every game together. Well, with that being said, considering there's only 5 plays, I'm still finding it very difficult to understand why they continue to struggle with communication. And it seems as though teams are able to run delayed stunts and blitzes, and in some cases we saw what they call a smash concept, where the strong side linebacker and the Mike linebacker rushes up the A gap, and then they delay blitz the outside linebacker through the C gap, and it's there for the taking time in and time again. And we saw a Keaton Slovis at times rattled as a result of just the body blows that he was taking throughout the game. And and fortunately for USC, they were able to overcome some of the carelessness of maintaining the football by Slovis. This game could have turned sour, and it was Colorado's for the taking. But when you flip to the other side of the ball and you look at the fact that, again, and I don't mean to be critical at the player, but I'm going to be critical at the position. Without a Talanoa Hufanga, the free safety position really struggles, or I'm sorry, the strong safety position seems to really struggle with personnel. Whether it's Chase Williams at times, a corner playing safety out of position, I have to ask myself, if you're CJ Pollard, what could you have possibly done to find yourself being Wally pipped by a true corner playing the safety position? What is it about that isn't resonating with the coaching staff that would allow for this corner, who at times is more of a liability than an asset to the defense in terms of his run fits, coming down with proper angles? Now, not to, again, direct it at him, because, again, he's playing Chase Williams is playing out of position. But everything sets up with the play of the safeties. But then, again, when I think about the personnel and the struggles, I look at communications. We saw a lot of scissor routes. Scissor routes meaning crossing routes from the slot receivers, and the lack of communication between the safeties, passing receivers across. If you don't think for a second that next week Oregon is going to exploit that, you best believe if you're not watching this game and trying to correct those communication errors, you're in trouble. And it was as simple as pre-snap read, where Isaiah Palomalo could have looked over to either Greg Johnson, the nickel, or Chase Williams and say, hey, look, if my man crosses the field, I'm going to pass him over to you because I'm already over leveraged. And now, as simple as that sounds, I've had those type of communications with the likes of a Troy Polamalu or our free safety at the time, Deshaun Hill. Early 2000s, late 1990s, when I played with the likes of an Ife Ohalete, you can have those layman term communications with them, because at the end of the day, the coaches are going to trust the personnel on the field to simply do their job. Now, because we didn't see a lot of that seesaw and that lack of communication, we saw guys in positions for the first time, or just quite frankly, just really trying to make sure that they understood their own position. So they didn't see the field the same way on different planes, and as a result, we saw a lot of exploitation with big explosive plays from arguably one of the best prolific receivers in the country.
Yeah, you mentioned Laviska Shenault. He sort of got things going against USC. We hadn't really seen him have a huge day, this year. It felt like he had that core muscle injury and hadn't been able to get things going. And even in this game, there were times where he sort of came up and was limping a little and still didn't feel 100%. The big play, obviously, where they hit him on kind of a quick throw, and Isaac Taylor Stewart just kind of can't quite get there, takes that angle. It felt like maybe a little bit of a delay on kind of closing that in. If
Eric, you see my face? I am so frustrated with that play. USC comes out of halftime early in the game, where the game is manageable, not really threatened with Colorado, and they decide to run a zero blitz coverage. We saw a lot of this zero blitz concept from the New England Patriots versus the Jets last Monday night in football. Well, I don't know. Clancy Pendergast decides to draw up the same thing. They decide to blitz, appears to be Greg Johnson off the edge. Doesn't give any safety help, or at least the disguise of safety help, just enough. And with the best athlete on the field being Shenault, you simply cannot put him in a position where he has three ways to go. Either through Isaac Taylor Stewart, ITS, around him, or quite frankly, a quick slant, because the angle, the advantage goes to the shortest distance between A and B. A and C, which is B, and that's where the ball was. A dart alignment, and there was nobody there to pay dirt. So I get a little frustrated when I see a call like that that's unnecessary at that critical juncture of a game that exposes your defense, knowing that you're playing with so many young guys in the secondary. You risk going no free safety, high help in those situations. That has to go on Clancy as much as the defense giving up that big play.
So they give up the big play. They give up a 17-yard run for a touchdown to Colorado quarterback Steven Montez. And then for the rest of the game, really, kind of still early third quarter on, all the way through the third quarter into the fourth quarter, 5 Colorado drives, no points. What did USC do? Because it felt like, boy, Colorado's running a lot of plays. The time of possession is clearly
Sure.
lopsided to Colorado. They're playing at elevation. USC doesn't have all their defensive guys. They're going to wear out. Colorado's going to run away with
Right.
this game. What did USC do? How were they able to stop Colorado when it really mattered most?
Well, we talked about alignment and assignment in the first half. When you got a lot of young guys, it's very critical that those first few drives that they were able to see the action. Then you go into halftime, you get on the dry eraser board, and you can illustrate how Colorado was attempting to attack with leverage. Then you come out in the second half and you simply make subtle adjustments, such as correcting the distance and the leverage that the players are coming downhill on an angle. And so instead of running up to commit into the running game, simply holding steady allowed for this defense to really kind of shore up the edges. And that's where they've become vulnerable all season. So it wasn't much of what USC did in terms of from an athletic standpoint. It was just the mental adjustments of correcting some errors and then forcing Colorado to have to methodically beat you down the field. And on a day where, again, I think we finally see where USC's plateaus are. The last 2 weeks, they played against teams that self-destructed, and they were able to capitalize off that turnovers. So that tells me, from a coaching standpoint, they're getting a little better. They're not falling into the trap or the lows and doldrums of the mistakes that teams like Arizona and Colorado are now making. But they're still having to rely upon great athletic, heroic ball to find themselves and dig themselves out of holes. So what I saw defensively was a team that was coachable enough to make those subtle adjustments, egoless when it comes to that, but then take advantage of some key opportunities when, again, Montez, late in the second half, didn't appear to be himself. He missed some ill-advised throws that he would probably want back. And you have to wonder how much of the hit by Hunter Echols truly impacted his accuracy.
Absolutely. His some deep balls that were just nowhere close after that, and he really only had maybe 2 or 3, significantly good throws
Right.
after that play. USC didn't come away with any turnovers, but you had an important third down sack by Caleb Tremblay, who was in for Christian Rector, who missed this
Yeah.
game, and then a nice pass breakup on third down from Elijah Griffin. Some third down plays. USC really locked down Colorado on third down,
Yeah.
especially in that second half, did well. And like you said, it felt like USC somehow became the team that wore down Colorado offensively. What Michael Pittman did in the second half, his 2 touchdowns, they both came in the
Were
fourth quarter,
crucial.
and they capped off huge drives. USC has the ball at their own 11-yard line. They've got to go. They've got
Yeah.
to go 89 yards, and it felt like, boy, if you don't do this and Colorado gets the ball back, you may either not get the ball back to try to win the game, or you getting the ball back with not enough time and
Right.
down too far. What'd you see from the USC offense? How were they able to put those couple drives together?
Well, even before that great Michael Pittman drive that we're going to talk about, um, you got to give Graham Harrell a lot of credit. Why? Because he saw a Keaton Kristen really not equipped at this point in his career to tote the ball 25, 30 times. So what do? You go empty personnel, 5 receiver sets, and you bring Amon-Ra St. Brown, you bring him in as a virtual running back at times. And I thought just giving Kristen those spotted rest opportunities allowed for him to be crisp. And then there's other times where I think now you have on film with that personnel and his speed, you can take advantage of wheel routes, knowing that he has good soft hands out of the backfield. But what did I see? I saw an offensive line that it looked like they changed their alignment up front, gave themselves a little bit more spacing so that Slovis had better pockets and lanes to throw through. Now, make no mistake about it. He's still holding on the ball a little longer than we would like to see him because he's taking some ill-advised hits. But at the times where he was able to sit or stand tall in the pocket, he was dissecting the defense, throwing dimes. One play to Tyler Vaughan that led to the touchdown that really kind of got them back within 10 points, I thought was critical, simply because you can tell his accuracy and his confidence was there, where he could thread the ball on the needle and put the ball where only he could put it. But when you go back to that last drive, think about how crucial it was. A young true freshman in Keaton Kristen, Johnny on the spot, jumping on the ball that got away from Slovis, that extended that drive and gave Pittman a few opportunities to really showcase why this dude is, halfway through the season, it feels like he's playing at an All-American level.
Yeah, Michael Pittman was terrific. Like you mentioned, Keenan Kristen jumping on that fumble. I was really impressed by Keaton Slovis in this game. He threw the early interception, and you just, you can't have that on the road. But for the shots he took, he has got to figure out down around the goal line, that fumble down there that again was recovered by USC.
Right.
You can't take that hit, and you certainly can't fumble the ball in that position on the field at that time of the game. So you saw him later in the game slide down early, and I'll give up 2 or 3 yards if it means him not getting hit. That's fine. And so if he's going to learn from that and start sliding, I think that's kind of mission accomplished as it comes to there. But for me, the way he was able to keep going, he was taking some hits. He took some hits that he did not need to take because the offensive line let runners through. There was one sack he took where 4 USC offensive linemen are blocking 2 Colorado defensive linemen.
And that's what
I think 2
about.
guys came through free. And so you mentioned communication has got to get better. There were some plays where Colorado clearly out-schemed the USC offense, and they put their players in a position to succeed against USC. But I thought the way Keaton Slovis bounced back from some of those hits, limping through a lot of the game, the throw that he had on that last touchdown drive to Drake London, they're facing a 2nd and 20 after the fumble. And that's a position where if you miss that throw, you're at 3rd and 20, probably punting, and maybe the game's over. He hits.
And that was after a lot of the body shots that he was taking.
Exactly.
Now, I got to give you, Erik, a lot of credit, because it had to be either spring or early in fall camp before I even knew how to pronounce Slovis' last name, or Keaton's last name is Slovis. You talked about the accuracy that he threw the ball in those intermediate routes, and that proved dividends in this game because, like you said, his ability to manipulate within the pocket and just find seams to increases to throw in is just a little bit beyond his time. And I happened to hear Kurt Warner earlier in the week in an interview on the Mason and Ireland show, and he talked about his preparation time with Slovis and how oftentimes they didn't have the best athletes, so he had to learn how to throw guys open. You talk about taking that unique skill set with the type of talent around him, and now you're seeing why this offense has so much upside potential. The only downside to it is you just can't keep enough guys healthy enough to see what this offense is truly capable of. But it took every bit of his 400-plus yard day, 3 touchdowns through the air, because truly in a situation where we talked about it earlier, USC, not since Sam Darnold led USC against Penn State in the Rose Bowl, had they come from behind by 10 points. But this kid has no fear in his veins, and he just keeps attacking. And that's what you love. And that's why this team will always have a chance as long as he's at the helm and he's playing with that kind of confidence.
Yeah, and don't short him 4 touchdown passes. The throw to Tyler Vaughan, where he was able to grab that back shoulder throw, like you mentioned, he can put the ball in places that true freshmen just cannot. That throw to Drake London, the touchdown pass down the sideline to Michael Pittman. Yes, he's open, but that's still dropping it exactly where it needs to be. The throw to Drake London, I mean, he makes throws where you absolutely forget he's a true freshman. He can still do some true freshman stuff. The shovel pass to Keenan Kristen in the backfield while everyone's getting tackled and the ball's bouncing up in the air. USC got away with a few. There were a couple fumbles, that play right there, a few late in the game where Colorado will kick themselves for days. I mean, they have to hate that they get sort of the extra time to think about this game because they absolutely had it. There's a sort of a give and take on, did they give it away or did USC go take it? I think it's a little bit of both, but I'd like to get I'd like to get your overall thoughts. For me, the takeaway is, and you mentioned it a little bit, this USC team is, again, we're so far into this season, but you're still getting signs. It's different than last year. This USC team is really fighting. This was not it. Okay, Colorado is not a good team. Not a good team. Certainly not a great team. That's a team that USC should go in and beat on the road. That's a team a lot of Pac-12 teams should go in and beat on the road. USC, when you look at the guys who are not playing for USC, I get it. Yeah, USC should be able to, people want to throw it, should be able to beat second team, beat Colorado with your second team or your third team or whatever. Colorado has some guys. The quarterback Stephen Montez is good. They've got a few wide receivers that are really good. They've got some defensive players that are good. I think the way USC was able to battle back, get down early. This is a few times now we've seen USC get down early, keep fighting, come all the way back. Again, in this 60-minute increment, I'm going to take this as a positive that they were able to come out with this win, because it's not easy for this team to win on the road. I think there are some huge questions with Oregon coming to the Coliseum. If you want to spin things forward and look at this big picture, there are still some huge questions that this team has to answer going forward. But I think they found something against Colorado, and just for these 60 minutes, for this one win, I think they should absolutely go ahead and celebrate it.
By all means, look, this was a nasty, sloppy win. But here's what I will say about this team and the character of this team. This team does not appear to be fazed by early mistakes. And those early mistakes, I don't attribute that to just bonehead play after play. I attribute that to just lack of experience of being on the job training, okay? Because you're rotating in so many guys. But they play with so much heart and conviction. But the one thing I will give credit to this team is when they smell blood or an opening, this team is a volume striker. When they hit you once, they start to feel themselves. And all of a sudden, the defense gets just enough stops, get off the field when they're supposed to and give the offense a fighting chance. And this offense has every great bit of confidence that they can march down the field against anybody and put up points when they execute. So because of that and the fact that they can recognize that, I will say that this team, just from that standpoint alone, is leap years ahead of where they were last year when things were in disarray. So can they have a performance like this and expect to beat Oregon? No. But has Oregon had a great deal of success of beating USC in the Coliseum? Absolutely not. But it is going to take on, with a couple of extra days rest, you're going to have to get some healthy bodies back in, because it's going to take more than just athletic bodies on the field. It's going to take some veteran leadership and experience to control the line, control the clock with time of possession, and to communicate effectively to keep Oregon off balance, because they're coming in with Herbert, and it's going to be a tough one.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens against Oregon coming in, but for now, USC is going to come back home from a road trip with a win for the first time this season. They're now 1-3 on the road. Yeah. Sure, like we mentioned up the top, sure looked like they were going to come home 0-4 on the road, but this keeps them sort of in the driver's seat in the Pac-12 South. And right now, that's the goal, to win the Pac-12 South. So they still own, that tiebreaker against Utah, and they'll put it on the line next weekend against Oregon. But for this weekend, they are winners against Colorado, 35-31. Again, like you mentioned, erasing a 10-point deficit in the fourth quarter. So for our look at USC's win over Colorado, for Darrell Rideaux, this is Erik McKinney. WeAreSC.